The crack of bone was louder than the baby's cry. Lila Harper was 28 years old, cradling their 6-week-old son against her chest with one arm while trying to shield her face with the other, when her husband Caleb's boot came down on her left shin. The snap was instant, sickening, wet. Pain exploded white-hot up her leg and she collapsed sideways onto the nursery rug, still clutching Noah so tightly that he only wailed harder. Caleb stood over them both, chest heaving, eyes wild from whatever cocktail of whiskey and rage he'd swallowed that night. "You think you can threaten to leave me?" he roared. "With my son." Lila tasted copper. Her phone lay shattered across the room from when he'd hurled it earlier. The baby monitor was blinking red, recording. She had turned it on the second she smelled liquor on his breath when he came home from work. She'd learned the hard way that evidence was the only thing that ever made him pause. Now her leg bent at an angle legs were never meant to bend, and all she could do was curl around Noah and pray the front door stayed locked. It didn't. The sound of a key turning in the deadbolt was soft, almost polite. Then the door opened and her father's voice, calm, Texan, and colder than she'd ever heard it, cut through the nursery like a blade. "Caleb, step away from my daughter." Lila looked up through tears and saw her dad, Jack Brennan, 62 years old, former Marine, widower, standing in the doorway in his old leather jacket. He was not alone. Flanking him were 4 men in dark windbreakers with FBI in yellow letters across the chest. Behind them, 2 uniformed county deputies already had their hands on their holsters. Caleb froze. The rage drained from his face, replaced by something small and animal. Jack's eyes went from his daughter on the floor, to the screaming infant in her arms, to the unnatural angle of her leg. Something ancient and murderous flickered across his weathered face, but he locked it down. "On the ground, son," one of the agents said, moving forward. Now, Caleb tried to speak something about this being his house, his family, but Jack was already crossing the room in 3 strides. He knelt beside Lila, sliding one gentle arm under her shoulders while the other cradled Noah against his own chest so she could breathe through the pain. "I've got you, baby girl," he whispered, voice cracking for the first time in 30 years. "Daddy's here. You're safe." The agents cuffed Caleb while he babbled excuses. Lila heard none of it. She only heard her father's heartbeat steady, strong, and her son's cries quieting against the same chest that had carried her on his shoulders when she was little. 6 months earlier, everything had looked different. Lila had married Caleb Harper because he was charming, because he cried when she told him she was pregnant, because he promised her the kind of love her mother never lived to see. Jack had walked her down the aisle himself, placed her hand in Caleb's, and told the boy, "Hurt her and there won't be a corner of this earth big enough to hide you." Everyone laughed. Caleb laughed loudest. The first slap came 2 weeks after Noah was born. Postpartum hormones, sleep deprivation, money stress. Caleb always had an excuse. Lila hid the bruise with makeup and told herself it was a one-time thing. The second time, she recorded it on her phone. The third time, she called her dad in the middle of the night from a gas station bathroom and sobbed that she was scared to go home. That was the night Jack stopped asking questions and started making phone calls. He had spent 40 years as a criminal investigator before retiring to his ranch outside Austin. Old friends still owed him favors. One of those friends now wore 3 stars at Quantico. Another sat on the federal bench. When Jack played them the secret recordings Lila had been emailing him, the threats, the sound of her crying, the escalating violence, doors opened fast. They built the case quietly. Financial fraud at Caleb's company, domestic violence reports filed anonymously, hospital visits Lila thought no one noticed. They waited for the perfect moment when Caleb would finally cross the line so far there would be no coming back. Tonight was that moment. In the ambulance, Lila floated on morphine while Jack held Noah and never let go of her hand. "I should have left sooner," she whispered, ashamed. "You left the second you decided your son would never see what I just saw," Jack answered. "That's not late, darlin'. That's brave." Caleb was charged with aggravated assault, child endangerment, and a dozen federal counts that would keep him away for decades. The trial was swift. The nursery video, captured by the baby monitor, played for the jury. Grown men cried. The judge gave him 25 years. Lila's leg healed crooked, but it healed. She moved into her dad's ranch house with its wide porches and endless sky. Physical therapy happened in the mornings. In the afternoons she rocked Noah on the same swing where her mother once rocked her. Jack built a ramp so she never had to struggle with the steps. On the first anniversary of the night her leg broke, Lila stood in the yard at sunset, watching her father teach 1-year-old Noah how to throw a tiny football. The limp was barely noticeable now. She still flinched sometimes at loud noises, but the nightmares were fewer. Jack walked over, sweat on his brow, grinning like a kid. "He's got your arm, you know," he said. "And your stubbornness," she laughed. He grew serious. "I failed you once, letting that boy anywhere near you. You didn't fail me, Dad. You showed up exactly when I needed you most. And you brought the cavalry." Jack looked out at the horizon where the Texas sky bled orange and gold. "Sometimes love isn't the soft stuff," he said quietly. "Sometimes love wears a badge and kicks in a door. Sometimes it sits in the dark for months planning every move so its little girl never has to be afraid again. That's the love you and Noah get to keep now." Lila leaned her head on his shoulder the way she did when she was 5. Years later, when Noah was 8 and asked why Mommy walked with a little hitch in her step, Lila sat him down on that same porch swing and told him the short version. "A long time ago, someone tried to break me. But your grandpa and a whole lot of good people reminded the world that breaking little boys' mothers is never free. And every day since then, we've been building something stronger than bones." Noah thought about it, then wrapped his arms around her bad leg and kissed the scar through her jeans. "I like the way you walk, Mama," he said. "It means you won." That night, Lila stood at the window watching her father and her son chase fireflies in the dark. The limp barely slowed her down anymore. She whispered into the quiet house the words she now lived by. "Some legs are made for running away. Mine was broken so I could learn to stand, really stand, right where I belong." And somewhere in the distance, a screen door creaked shut behind them, locking the past out for good.